Thank you for joining us on More Than That, a podcast where we dive a little bit deeper into what was preached on Sunday morning. We hope that this is enriching to your walk with Christ and that you love God and people that much more so that we can extend the glory of God to the people He has placed in our lives. So buckle up and enjoy the conversation. Hey church, welcome back to More Than That. This week we had our second part of chapter 2 of the Gospel of John. And this is really all about Jesus driving people out of the temple.
Yeah.
And this is the famous passage where he turns the tables, and I can only imagine the rage. I could just, Jesus just, essentially, rage quitting. And just crashing out and doing all of this crazy stuff in the middle of the temple just to make a big scene and a big deal out of all of this.
Yeah.
Which, from just reading this passage, I don't know if that emotion has really come across, at least in the English. And maybe we can talk a little bit more about that later. But if you had an extra 10 minutes or so to dive us into some deeper waters, or maybe even take us down a second stream or an alcove or something like that with this passage, where would you have taken the church?
So just looking at this passage, I first of all, I was just kind of blown away by, I've read this passage over and over and over. And one thing that I wanted to clarify was just the idea that a lot of times, we look at and we think maybe it's really about the trading that's happening. Obviously, there is something to that maybe they are charging a little bit more money, inflated prices, and they know people want to come and worship and they want to come and do all those things. So they end up actually inflating the prices there and all that stuff. So there is a form of injustice happening that way. But I think even the greater form of injustice that happens there is where the trade is actually happening, which is what sometimes people say it's the court of the Gentiles. And if it's the court of the Gentiles, then if you are a Gentile and you really were interested in coming and worshiping God during the Passover, where else would you go if now your place of worship is now a trading place? That's now what also as well just is a lot more just you're seeing Jesus angry because, and there's just that aspect of so if this gospel started with through you all nations will be blessed, and nations are coming to the temple, to the only place that's reserved for them, and they just can't even, it's just it's occupied. Something else is going on. Maybe, and I want you to try to think about going to, let's say, for example, farmer's market, going to, it's almost like a farmer's market type, or maybe to our county fairs, which is and there's cows and there's everything going all around. And you just start thinking about hey, could you come and set up a mat there and kneel down and pray and sing? And then just, you know what I mean? And meanwhile,
but sell the mats and sell the the words to the prayer. And
so
those type of things.
All those things. And meanwhile, the place, if a Jew wanted to go and worship the Lord, he would at least there was a sanctuary for them where it's quiet and it's so it's just almost it's if you go to New York City, for example. Have you seen those big cathedrals that are there? If you walk in there, it's quiet.
Yeah.
But then imagine actually there's that quiet there, and there is the bustle and hustle that's going on to just a couple of steps out in the crowd. and that's where you're meant to be having a time of solitude and worshiping the Lord. And now that you've proselytized and you've become a believer, like in God, in some way, shape, or form, and then Jesus is looking and saying, there's no place for them.
Yeah.
In that way. And it's almost, and in fact, someone actually used the Ethiopian eunuch as almost like a picture of that. That like, imagine if the Ethiopian eunuch had traveled to the temple, like during Passover, and then he gets there and there's just all this trade happening, like trade is happening and stuff like that. And then he just picks up the scroll of Isaiah and on his way out, and he just goes. Like, it just kind of, so I want you to think of it that way. And his predicament there is, how will I understand if nobody explains to me? But like, hey, what happened? I walked in there. This is a hypothetical, by the way. I walk in there, and the place was crowded, and I couldn't find a place of worship. But I know that I came all the way from Ethiopia to come and do this. Like, and thank God for his mercy and his grace and his compassion that he has to teleport Philip from Samaria all the way there so that he can actually reach him. So that's number one. And number two, the other side of this is actually like, if you read this passage, like, and you look at the temple and see, like, according to Hebrews, the temple is almost like the tabernacle. The temple is almost like it's meant to be, what you call it? Is it like a copy of what's happening in heaven?
Yes.
Right? Like, and if then this is also just like an outpost of a place where communion happens, right? An outpost of a place where communion happens. Imagine if you were in the beginning with God and you were with angels and seeing angels worshiping, like Isaiah chapter 6, and you hear them cry, holy, 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 and you see everything shaking, everything trembling, everything. And then you come down, the word become flesh, and dwelt amongst us, and then you walk into a place that's meant to represent the ideal. At least have an ounce of that. And then you find it's totally the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Unless you connect those two, you will never understand the zeal that's actually like, he's a boiling pot, because he says, it is my Father's house. And when he's saying it's my Father's house, he is talking from, once again, we forget that sometimes it's an honor-shame culture. Like, if it's an honor-shame culture and you really, really like are seeing your Father's house shamed, and you are the Son, what belongs to the Father belongs to the Son. And so therefore there is a reason why then he then freaks out like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like there's an honor there where it's like, you are not giving the honor that and the glory and the worship and the power that belongs to my Father. So therefore I'm gonna go and he's he's coming to restore. He's coming to restore the temple. They're waiting for a restoration of the temple because the Old Testament had promised that, but then God is actually now doing it through a person. So that's really just like, and from there you see the culmination of everything happening. So anyway.
So maybe we can just swing back and hit the emotional side of it, because you did kind of bring it up a little bit. So you deal a lot more with the original language than the typical person.
Yeah.
You've taken classes and you know how to read Greek and Hebrew and a bunch of other different languages. But is there a sense of, what was actually going on with Jesus there in the passage? I mean, we get, obviously, you know, there's the flipping of tables, and which kind of gives like distressed anger, grief type of like emotions that are kind of being, you know, described. But does the Greek give any more clues into what's actually going on within Jesus there?
I think there's at least two passages that will be very helpful when it comes to that. The first passage then is, because like that, this is like you see echoes of the Old Testament there. One of them that at least you have to be hearing is at least Psalm 69.
Okay.
And Psalm 69 is a messianic psalm that is actually talking about where the psalmist is he's zealous about the house of the Lord. And when we're saying zealous about the house of the Lord, he's zealous of the things of the Lord. Like let me just kind of because when you're looking at the emotion of emotional life of what's happening. So B.B. Warfield, for example, wrote a book called, and I just want to recommend this, maybe just like it'll be great. It's called The Emotional Life of Our Lord.
Okay.
It's a short classic.
Okay.
Like, and in there, he talks about the fact that like from beginning to end, his life was burst out with compassion. And so when you hear my Father's house, there is a compassion of like, this is not what it was meant to be. And so at least just that captures. And then he says, my Father's house.
Yeah.
But then the disciples are reminded of, oh, this is what's happening here. It reminds us of the psalm, which is actually Psalm 69. And let me just kind of just like, let me show you what actually like Psalm 69 says. Listen to this. Save me, God, for the waters have risen to my neck. I have sunk in deep mud, and there is no footing. I have come into deep water, and the flood sweeps over me. I am weary from my crying. My throat is parched. My eyes fail, looking for my God. Can you see this? My eyes fail, looking for my God. Those who hate me without cause are more numerous than the hairs of my head. And I want you to actually follow what's happening, because zeal there is connecting to what's happening in him. And then you will actually get to see later on how that connects, which is something I didn't bring out. Psalm 69 is going to connect in this way. Listen to this. Those who hate me without cause are more numerous than the hairs of my head. My deceitful enemies who would destroy me are powerful. Though I did not steal, I must repay. God, you know my foolishness, and my guilty acts are not hidden from you. Do not let those who put their hope in you be disgraced because of me, the Lord of armies, which is David praying this. But listen to verse 7. For I have endured insults because of you. The shame has covered my face. I have become a stranger to my brothers. Which is actually like, remember when God had promised that another prophet, he said another prophets will be brought from amongst your brothers. And he says like, a foreigner to my mother's sons, because the zeal for your house has consumed me. The insults of those who insult you have fallen on me. That's actually what's repeated in there. Because the zeal for the insults I have mourned and have fasted, but it brought me insults. I wore sackcloth as my clothing, and I was a joke to them. Those who sit at the city gate talk about me, and the drunkards make songs about me. But as for me, Lord, my prayer to you is for a time of favor. In your abundant, faithful love, answer me with your sure salvation. Rescue me from the mire mud. Do not let me sink. Let me be rescued from those who hate me and from deep water. Do not let flood waters sweep over me or deep swallow me up. Do not let the pit close its mouth over me. There's a way in which it's like this passage always is going to be. You can't read this passage apart from the Passion, by the way. Because from there, like, it's also as well, like, if you go and you kept on reading this, do not hide your face from your servant, for I am in distress. Answer me quickly. Answer me quickly. Come near me and redeem me. Ransom me because of my enemies. You know the insults I endure, my shame, my disgrace, and you are aware of all my adversaries. Listen to this. Insults have broken my heart. I am in despair. I waited for sympathy, but there was none. And for comforters, and I found no one. Listen to this part. And you remember where this is at. Psalm 69, it says this in 21. Instead, they gave me gall for my food, and for my thirst, they gave me vinegar to drink. Where do you hear them giving vinegar to drink?
That's on the cross.
It's on the cross. So you almost like, it's hard for you to read this passage without reading the death and the death. Like, because the next movement from here is going to be like, destroy this temple and in 3 days I'll raise it again. You can't help it but see the cross there, where it says that, like, oh, from that moment they understand the zeal for the Lord's house will eat me up. So in fact, there is almost like a way in which the last passage, Jesus says the hour has not come. This time when they're talking about the zeal eating him up, they know that the zeal also comes with the consequences of the zeal. It means he will have to suffer for it and get killed for it.
Yeah.
So that's actually like, if you kind of just like we're looking at what's the emotional life, I think as well, like when Jesus is fixing those chords and he's doing that, number one, he's entering into the Malachi 3. The Lord will come to his temple and he is going to render justice, which is what we see him do. Yeah. But number two, from there onwards, he is actually also that miracle there. If there's a miracle an act that actually puts a bullseye on his back and he enters fully into Psalm 69, that's actually what he does. Because from there, he is replacing the temple, their sacred place of worship, and they don't understand. And then so from there onwards, he's got a bullseye on his back. Yeah. Like, and now they want him out. Yeah. Because for them, the temple is actually, him calling himself the temple is blaspheming to them.
Yeah, and which is good. Just because there's sometimes in Christianity we tend to think that God incarnate or just God in general doesn't have emotions, but we see in Jesus there are certain type of emotions that come out, and that's something that we have to wrestle with. So how do we wrestle with that in a good and healthy way, in a biblical way, rather than just like wholeheartedly writing it all off or just including all of it and whatever that might look like. So we want to avoid the extremes in that type of way.
Listen to this. What you just said. This is what what's his name, Warfield says. He says there's a tendency in the interest of the dignity of his person to minimize, and there's a tendency in the interest of the completeness of his humanity to magnify his affectional movements. So you see, he's saying that we can fall in two ditches, right? One of them is to minimize his emotional life, and the other one is to maximize his emotional life. He says the one tendency may run some risk of giving us a somewhat cold and remote Jesus, what you're saying, whom we can scarcely believe to be able to sympathize with all our infirmities.
Yes.
Like the other may possibly be in danger of offering a Jesus so crassly human as scarcely to command our highest reverence. Between the two, the figure of Jesus is liable to take on a certain vagueness of the outline and come to lack definiteness in our thought. It may not be without its uses, therefore, to seek a starting point for our conception of his emotional life in the comparatively few affectional movements. And that's where from there he says, if you go into the gospel, you will see that the emotion that would naturally that we should naturally expect to find most frequently attributed to Jesus, whose life was on mission of mercy and whose ministry was so marked by deeds of beneficence, which is beneficence, and it was summed up in the memory that his followers as going through the land doing good. And so basically at the end of the day, compassion is one of the most words that are used to describe. He was known for going about doing good. So we can fall in those. Like, he's not cold and distant, but then at the same time he's not like sappy. He's not like what you call it? Is that sappy? Not like he's not
all up in his feels.
Yeah. So there is a way in which we can read the Bible. I love the song that like City Light has, and we've sang it a couple of times. My kids love it. It's Jesus strong and kind. Like, and so you can't take the too kind and then at the expense of strong.
Yes.
You can't take too strong at the expense of kind.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
And when it's in the apologetics world, we like to throw the passage or the verse about truth and love and speaking the truth in love.
Yeah.
Where there's certain people that are all truth and no love, and some people that are all love and no truth.
Yeah.
It's that exact same.
Yeah,
that
kind
exact
of like
thing.
Yeah.
We need to figure out how to balance the two so that so that we can accurately understand the person of Jesus. One of the books that really helped me with that is by one of my friends, Ryan Mullins. It's called Eternal in Love.
Okay.
It hits all of my sarcastic bones because he's a super sarcastic guy, and it just kind of comes through the writing. But it's him wrestling with this whole idea of the emotions of God and how to make sense of it, and how do we understand God's emotional life. Yeah. And he's really clear that he's not sure. Yeah. And I think that's an okay place to be regarding all of it. Yeah. But when it comes to how we tend to, think about our emotions, sometimes our emotions end up tainting and coloring the way we view reality. Yeah. And there comes a point which we can't help but have emotions. That's just part of who we are. Yeah. But we need to understand, and I think you made a good point of this, that we can't like our emotions are not reality. They are real and they are valid. Everything that we experience is definitely, for lack of a better word, true. Like, we are truly experiencing these emotions, but sometimes those emotions don't correspond with reality. Yeah. And that's something, as we try to think through things biblically and Christianly, we need to remember that. Yeah. Because when we do remember that, then we can take that lens off and accurately assess what's going on. Why am I feeling this way? Or maybe even assessing Jesus' emotional life. Why was Jesus feeling this way? Because when you think about it, this passage is very emotional, and it brings up it's probably meant to bring up emotions within us as well. Yeah. Some sort of zeal for the church. Yeah. And so how do as we experience these emotions along with Jesus, can we assess Jesus' emotional life well as a result of us experiencing those emotions? Because then it also brings into question, what do we do with emotions in worship? You know, are we allowed to have an emotional experience with God? Which, like, you know, one of the questions that I had written down was, how do we help prevent the crash from these emotional highs? So just as a practical application of this whole talk about emotions, how would you, if I were to come to you and say, hey, like, I'm scared, I'm experiencing this like emotional high with Jesus right now, I'm afraid of the crash. How would you advise me?
I would actually just say then it's one of those things where you have to, you know, you have to just stay with Jesus. That's really what I would say. Stay with Jesus. Okay. Because Jesus has a way in which, like, and I don't know if you realize that, like, and I used the John MacArthur kind of like in his commentary, he says that like zeal is a mixture of love and hate. Okay. Like, and there's a way in which it's a mixture of love and hate, like, because it's just like whatever it is that's threatening the Father's house, like, provokes either love or hate, and there is a way in which it's like, if you're experiencing, let's say, for example, like just seasons of sweetness, like, and then seasons of sweetness, or seasons maybe of just rage because you're seeing things not being done in a way that displeases the Lord, and stuff like that. I think seasons of sweetness, like the ones where, for example, like you're like, oh, it's so sweet up here, obviously stay with Jesus, because why do I say that? At the Mount of Transfiguration, Peter is with Jesus and he is seeing at the pinnacle of revelation, God is speaking, he's with Moses and he's with Elijah, and it's just amazing, it's sweet. And he's like, let's camp here. But Jesus is like, no, let's stay with me, Peter. We're gonna go. I know that like you want to stay up here, but if you stay with me, I'm gonna have to go into the grave and then be raised up after 3 days. That's actually like Peter will not regret not staying up there with Jesus, because he got to see Jesus risen from the dead. But through the valley of actually the crash, Peter did experience the crash, basically. You know what I mean? So, hey, Lee. So Peter does experience that crash, and then I would say that in seasons of actually just like where it's a little bit hard, just stay with Jesus, because he knows how to be low like that. Like in those seasons where you're desiring to see justice happen, just remember that if you stay with Jesus, your zeal can never overtake Jesus' zeal. You know what I mean? Like, because there's sometimes when we can get so passionate about something that we actually like, we get so passionate and we villainize the church, and we get angry at even the church and stuff like that. And then we end up being accusers of the church. Like, and then we're at the end of the day, it's like, hey, in your zeal, don't overtake Jesus. Stay with Jesus. Keep in lock and step with Jesus. I think either way, you just have to stay with Jesus. That's really what
So maybe this was a question like beforehand. Maybe it's an after question. Maybe it's a before question. I'm not sure where to place it. But this question came through. This question came through as a result of your sermon. Okay. And it's just a quick, is it possible for a sinful human to show righteous anger?
Yeah, it is possible. It is possible because obviously like now we are the temples of the Holy Spirit. Righteous anger, but then but also just make sure that you stay with Jesus. In the righteous anger, you can feel so righteously right about something that you end up reacting in sinful ways if you don't stay with Jesus. You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's like the way that I like to look at it is like a circle.
Yeah.
So there's like you can swing so hard one direction that you essentially look like someone that you're not.
Yeah.
And that you're trying to do the exact opposite. So like one of the ways that I like to characterize it is like sometimes we go so hard as to try to not offend someone that we end up offending people.
Offending, yeah. So there's the way in which it's like, there is righteous anger, that righteous anger, but like in the midst of righteous anger there, just be careful lest you actually end up falling into the snare of actually the enemy in terms of pride.
Yeah.
In terms of like, I know better what's right for this. And half of the time, sometimes we don't see the full picture. Like, is there at least a wondering of actually maybe thinking the best about people instead of actually just thinking, instead of thinking totally just like, and maybe villainizing them, like, and then just at the end of the day, in a way that's like, making it seem like maybe they are being sinful. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. So one of the other things that I kind of wanted to also bring up, just because this passage and your sermon kind of touched a little bit on the spiritual marketplace.
Okay. Yeah.
Because you talked about cynicism and towards the church and things like that. So, and if I'm off base, let me know.
Okay.
Just because like when I think about the spiritual marketplace, I'm not just thinking ideas.
Yeah.
I'm thinking churches.
Yeah.
So, there's this phrase that Christians like to search around or throw around. Oh, I'm church shopping.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a helpful way to talk about trying to find a home church? Because that seems to commodify the church experience rather than trying to figure out just where a place is that you're going to grow.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that's a helpful way to talk about?
I mean, it's a good way of actually, because like half the times it's like, you're church shopping, but what are you shopping for? Like, are you shopping for the Jesus that's going to agree with you and that's not going to confront any sinful issues, that's going to agree with all your sinful tendencies, that's going to stamp what your areas of comfort, control, approval, and all those things?
Yeah.
What is it that you're shopping for? Are you shopping for like a place where you will be refined, or are you shopping for a place where you will be comfortable and then you will be celebrated instead of just like it's good to be celebrated, but where you will be all celebrated and never confronted, where you will be all devoted and never discipled.
Yeah.
All, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like where it's like, what's your ideal church? Like, is your ideal church a one-way street where literally like all you do is, because some people will just like, I'm looking for a church where I can give. But can you actually come in and receive? I'm looking for a church where I can, like where everyone likes me. Like, I'm looking for a church where I will never experience conflict. And just that's for me is actually just like where it's like, I'm looking for a church that's going to be, what is a perfect church for you? Like, and we can actually like, then the question there is that like, what marketplace, what catalog are you shopping from that will actually just like, what fences is this like are you looking for someone who's going to tickle your ears or who's going to give you the word of God and who's going to cause you to grow? Are you looking for someone who will take seriously the accountability for your soul and to present you blameless before the Lord? Or are you looking for at least a consumeristic kind of picture? So just, I mean, like all those things, I'm just saying there's an unhealthy way of looking. And I would say that one of the best books that actually just I think you should read is two books, for example, like at least What is a Healthy Church by Mark Dever. What is a healthy church member? Like by Tabiti Anwabile. And we usually give them out here.
Yeah.
But very, very good. At least in just kind of saying, hey, if you're looking for a church, this is what you should be looking for.
Yeah.
But like if nothing in within that, and it just all has to do with personal preferences and people who are like you, who are homogeneous and you just don't want to be like with people that are different than you and all that stuff, and it just all has you in the center of that and not the glory of God, then you're basically a marketplace Christian.
Yeah, which I think is a good way to a good phrase for that, a marketplace Christian.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, at that point, as soon as the church flips and it doesn't center around you and how the church can help
you leave.
Then you're out.
You're out, yeah.
There's no sense of ownership and community there. And, I mean, perfect way to kind of illustrate this, I think, is just the divorce prevalence in our culture. Jesus talks about this in Matthew 19, where the context there is they're asking him about a no-fault divorce, essentially, or we could maybe say a micro-fault divorce, where the wife could have burnt the bread in the morning whenever she was making breakfast, like that.
And you just didn't like that, right?
Yeah, you didn't like that, so you can give her divorce papers. And like Jesus quickly was like, yeah, no, this isn't. That's you have to stay. Yeah, like that's not a cause for divorce. So just the prevalence of that and the type of things that we see, not only biblically but in our culture today, where it could be something as simple as, I don't like the way you talk to our kids, so therefore I'm out.
Yep.
It's like rather than working on it together, you're sitting there and you're working on your relationship and you're working to love your children better as a team, rather than saying, nope, I'm out just because I don't like this.
Yeah, and it's also as well just like I think I was talking to someone and I was like, man, I am kind of jealous for you because you could just choose, like someone who had sat down and they were like, yeah, I'm leaving. And why? And it turned out that they just didn't want to talk to and reconcile with someone. Like, or it turns out that like, and I've just had a lot of these conversations and usually just, or sometimes like, I just don't feel like waking up and going to church today. Just because I had a fallout with so-and-so yesterday. And so therefore, I'm just going to... And then just this idea that like we just always like, just not today because of A, B, C, and D. And I was like to them, or maybe just me thinking through this, and I'm like, wow, it must be nice to be you, that you can decide when to engage and to withdraw. And I think everyone needs to almost like be in a place like probably where the pastor is. Like, man, I can totally just be trashed the day before. Not trashed in terms of drunk, by the way.
Yeah.
Trashed in terms of like...
every other way.
Hurt deeply.
Yeah.
But yet I still have to still go back to Jesus and still have to stay and still lock in and just still love his bride and then not only that, and still just believe the best about people and go back and pray and ask the Lord to forgive, like for the power to forgive. And like, why? Because I've said this to pastors. I coach a lot of pastors and say, your church is going to hurt you deeply. And people will say hurtful things, and people have said hurtful things that just like from, you know, he needs to go and get tested of HIV/AIDS before he marries you, talking to my wife, or things like, you see what I'm talking about? Like just things that are just like, he needs to go back to where he came from, or A, B, C, and D, or by now this, or whatever it is. And like, we can just talk about like whether it's racial, whether it's actually like personal, but yet at the same time, I still have to do the job of going back to the Lord and saying, Lord, where do you want me? No, I want you there. Stay.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm hurting, Lord. I will heal you. But then in the midst of it, but hey, that's still my bride. That's still the church. Don't accuse her, because there's only one accuser, Satan. I still love her and I died for her. Hey, by the way, the sins you're seeing in her right now is simply because I want you. This is what I'm making her to be. This is what I'm making her new. Don't put a lid on her. Like, she will be radiant. She will be like me. Keep preaching the word. Keep sitting. And I usually say that like the church member just has no just willy-nilly choice, just as much as the pastor has no willy-nilly choice.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where it's like, we make it so easy to quit.
Yeah.
Like, and we make it so easy to just kind of like preferences end up overriding, where at the end of the day, man, if my preferences hit me very well, like, I don't know where I would be. Like, if I followed my preferences, like, but that's like so unstable instead of actually following, because that's now like where the emotional life that is unchecked by Jesus can literally like, then I'd be moving almost every year.
Oh, yeah.
The next person, like, and I know I have so many of my friends that are in their 6th or their 7th church ever since I started here.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that, they leave a trail of actually what? Unforgiveness behind that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where at the end of the day, but at the same time, it's like, how else were all these gospel one another's meant to be applied? Be kind to one another, forgive one another, serve one another.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? As Christ. How were they meant to be fulfilled if literally like they didn't have the negative counterparts?
Yeah.
How was love, patience, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and all those things, unless they were tempted with hate and impatience? And you see what I mean? Like, how was the Spirit meant to work? How was Jesus meant to purify his bride apart from those things? And we can take them. We go back to our main scripture, like we can take those things, exalt them above the knowledge of what? Mm-hmm. Christ Jesus, where then our zeal then overtakes the zeal of Jesus, and they're not submitted to Jesus, the man of all sorrows, acquainted with all grief. Then all of a sudden, then we make it an easy escape, and we say, you don't understand. Mine is a little bit worse. But we have to now just like always think about it. I saw a post yesterday, and I'm just going to probably read this and then be done.
Yeah.
That like, stop making someone or something or someone like what someone did to you bigger than what Jesus did for you.
Oh, yeah.
Stop making someone or something someone did that bigger than. And how else were we meant to reenact? Can you see like just the beauty of our Savior when he's giving us Matthew 18? How else was Matthew 18 meant to be invoked as actually like a process if brother and sister didn't offend each other?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, but if we can't even get to step number 2 because you're out.
Yeah.
You see what I'm talking about? That day is actually like, how else was the bride meant to be radiant apart from the gauntlet of suffering? And how else were we meant to consider it pure joy unless that was happening? Is probably maybe going now even into that marketplace idea of like, we are so suffering averse that literally like we just want to get out of that, like, and we just want to escape it. But sometimes it's just like, if you follow Jesus through it all, that probably is like, I think that was my last point there. That like, how is it that Jesus then calls them genuine believers versus fake believers or shallow believers? You remember that at the end there, it says that like he didn't commit himself to them because they were addicted to the highs.
Oh, yeah.
Like as long as the imperfect participle in Greek there, as long as he was doing miracles, they believed in him. But then when he stops, and you'll see it in John 6, he confronts the same thing. And he's like, you're following me because I multiplied bread. And he's like, and then I say something difficult and you want to leave. Mm-hmm. And then when you want to leave, Jesus looks at his disciples and he's like, are you going to leave also? That's a convenient Jesus. And when Jesus inconveniences us just a little bit, we're like, I'm out.
Yeah.
You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That's a consumeristic Jesus
So, you know me, I like food, I like cooking, all that stuff. So it kind of reminds me of like the difference in quality between like a 3-star Michelin restaurant and Minute Mart.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which if you don't know what the Minute Mart is, it is quite literally something that you go in and for 1 second and then a minute later you're out. Like it's just a convenience store, but it kind of gives me that vibe, like a convenience Christianity, rather than a Michelin star Christianity, where it's expensive, and the reason it's expensive is because time is spent. There's a radical level of commitment. Dietrich Bonhoeffer calls it costly discipleship versus cheap discipleship.
Cheap grace.
So those, the economic terms help us understand that spiritual marketplace idea, simply because if you are a marketplace Christian, you're a Minute Mart Christian. You want to go in 1 minute and then out the next, and then you don't stop back in until you need something. But whenever you're sitting down at a Michelin star restaurant, which I've never been to one. I've seen many videos and chefs doing their thing, but when you look at the prep, which is kind of like the prep that you do for the sermons, that head chef spends hours, if not all week, on one single dish, planning, prepping, getting all of the ingredients together, and then whenever you're actually at the restaurant, it's a 2-hour ordeal. You're there not just because you paid for it, but because it's something that is not just good for your belly, it's good for your body and your mind. Like, there is something there with a Michelin star restaurant. Yeah, it's expensive. And sometimes it might seem kind of unnecessary. But when you think about the quality of ingredients, the quality of the sermon, the meal that you're getting served on a Sunday is worth the $300 that you spend to go sit there.
No, that's good.
Like there's, like not everyone needs a 3-star restaurant. I wouldn't want to pay for it either. That's $300 that I could go spend on something else. But it's the concept of are you willing to pay in terms of like as a living sacrifice? Are you willing to give your life, which is the most expensive thing that you own? I was thinking about like the reason why I was thinking about what you were saying. You can either go eat sushi quickly here, or you can go eat sushi from a very, very expensive sushi bar. For example, I don't know if you've ever watched. There's a documentary called Hiro Makes Sushi. It's probably one of the most very, very interesting documentaries you would ever watch. But it talks about this guy who has made sushi all his life and perfected. To make a reservation at his place,
it's like you have to your reservation is probably 3 or 4 months before. You don't decide you want to go eat sushi at Hero's Place like in Japan.
Yeah.
Like you have to, there's no walk-ins, and in fact, he probably usually has like 3 or 4 or 5 guests at a time.
And it's probably no bigger than this room.
Yeah, it's not bigger than it. But yet, and it's pretty interesting because the dude who was making rice, he was like, I've been on rice duty for 2 years just to learn how to make the rice.
Yeah.
And that's how it's going to be a sushi that's going to be way better than, So
Yeah.
you're right. It's just one of those things that's, we have to, the quality of what Jesus is calling us to, if we follow our consumeristic tendencies, we will go back into, I think somebody said some time back, the McDonaldization of just basically even the church.
Yeah.
Where at the end of the day, we want something that's fast, that's quick, that's, and that's just and then it's quick and it meets our needs very quick, but it's too much fluff. But quality, if we are to become what Jesus called us to be, man, it's gonna take us following Jesus even into hard places.
Yeah.
And that's now where this right here kind of comes in, where genuine discipleship, what really at the end of the day, I love the fact that when they're saying the zeal of the Lord has consumed him, and they're saying, oh, we understood that now he was talking about his body, not the what? Not the temple.
Yeah.
But do you realize that actually between that is all the suffering? They confirm, they keep following him through difficulty. And then they literally go have these aha moments later on after he's risen from the dead. And that's genuine. They just keep following even in the fog. I'm sure initially when they heard him say, destroy this temple, they were like, oh, I think Jesus is crazy. How? They literally they probably responded like the other guys who responded in that way. But then later on, but because of the work of the Spirit and the willingness to follow him at every step and follow him even, they get even scattered, and Jesus comes back and gets them back from fishing later on, when they go back to fishing, and Jesus comes and gets them back. And then when he is resurrected, they get aha moments. And I think that's actually maybe where even our discipleship has to be anchored a little bit more. Are you willing to follow the Savior when you are in the fog and you do not understand? And then let him in his due time help you to understand.
Yeah.
We don't know how long it took from we understood that he was talking about his resurrection. In between was the confusion of the disorientation of, we saw him crucified and we saw him getting put in the grave. And that Saturday, in between the aha and the committing to follow Jesus, that's now the costliness of discipleship, of willing to follow him on the downward spiral of his humiliation, so that when he is resurrected, we get this moment of I am so glad I followed.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually basically then what genuine discipleship looks like versus what I would say, we would call it marketplace kind of discipleship. That's just man, it's all my needs and stuff like that. That's kind of leading that. So
yeah. I don't want to belabor that too much.
Yeah.
We could continue talking about that, because that's something that we, I think, need to combat.
Well, you're gonna see that next week anyway.
Okay, good. We will continue the conversation next week then. It was just there was a lot in this sermon that we could unpack, and I'm sure as we keep going through John, that we're still going to get to meet some of the ideas that John is combating.
Yeah.
Because you brought up New Age and New Thought and universalism and my body, my choice, and I don't want to get into them. You brought them up, but the one thing.
Hey, where the word goes. But at the same time, though, I did say, hey, man, and we are going into a very special season, January, where you can pick up a Bible reading plan and plow through it, and it'll help you to actually understand the whole story of the Bible. So, with that said, I did say that, hey, if you have problems with this, it's not Raphael, the Holy Spirit, and the written word. You need to really study it a little bit more. And we would love to help you to do that. So
Yeah. One of my distant mentors, never actually met the man, Greg Kokel, he's like, listen, it's not me. It's not me that you got the issue with. It's Jesus. So take it up with him, not me.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? I like that. It doesn't, remove the work that you have to do, but the blame's not on you. It's not a problem. It's not your problem. It's Jesus' problem, and Jesus is God, so he can take care of it.
Yeah, and he's making, and that's actually now where he is making some very exclusive points there.
Yeah.
Because he is also talking, he is combating whether it's Gnosticism, whether it's the Greek pantheon, and the whole, philosophers, logos, what, and he's saying everything now has to bow down to him.
Yes.
And it has to. And so you have to read John in that way as well. John is coming and he's saying Jesus came to take all and not have competition, period.
Yeah.
That's really what's happening there.
There's definitely apologetic themes throughout.
Oh my
John.
goodness. Yes.
I mean, granted, the apologetic themes are all throughout Scripture.
Oh, yeah.
But John goes hard.
Yeah, John came in that's why even just it's, the moniker of this sermon series is "Here is your King." If the King can't make demands on you, then maybe we have to ask who's really king.
Yeah.
That's really just at the end of the day, and he has to make demands for exclusivity, for being the locus of communion, for being the center of everything, and saying your heart and your mind and everything you long for is met within him. And that's really just that's what this is like. By believing in him, you may have what? Life. And can life be found anywhere else? John says no. It can only be found in Jesus. So that's at the end of the day. And we have to now then fill in the blank of what other things is he competing with.
Yes.
And that's actually what if Jesus was coming into our temples, he would have to clean up. And man, did he clean house in my heart last week. I had a love-hate relationship with that sermon because there was so many things where I was like, yeah, you've made this so important. You need to clean. I need to be supreme over all that. And he needs to be what Dave Witt is in his book, Spiritually Healthy Leader, talking about spiritually healthy leaders and then therefore Christians. And he says Christ must become our ruling passion instead of any other thing, whether it's vows, whether it's our traumas, whether it's our pains, our aches, our griefs, and our past and all those things. And he says we can make those become our ruling passions. And then therefore, that's where control and comfort and approval kind of just gain ground in terms of idolatry in our lives. We can make Christ the ruling passion, meaning that then he comes, destroys, disables, dethrones, and then is crowned in our hearts. And what emanates out of that is what? A life of glory. because from his temple, all cry glory, like the Psalms say. But that's what's meant to come. And once again, it goes to the vision of our church to what? To extend the glory of God by making disciples through the gospel. And if then Christ is glorified in our lives, it is for our joy and for his glory and for everyone else who comes and watches and gets involved in our lives. They get to actually get almost like a piece of that glory that God is actually working in within us. So that's a good closer there.
You say we're going to stop with the mission statement. Perfect. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next couple sermons. Chapter 3 is one of my favorites in John.
Yeah,
it's well loved, but also I think also well misunderstood. But we'll talk about that.
Yes, we will. We will.
I just want to remind you all that this conversation is not a replacement for Raphael's sermon. So if you're listening on the podcast, please go one podcast earlier and you are going to get this sermon. And if you're watching on YouTube, please go to our channel and find the video tab and the playlist tab, and it's going to be underneath the playlist, Here's Your King. So please go check out the sermon that is associated with this. There's a lot more that Raphael unpacks. We also want to just remind you that this is not also, in terms of replacing, we are not, this isn't a replacement also for being in church.
In the local church,
we just spent an entire almost hour or so talking about the church. So please, we want to encourage you, go get involved with a good, healthy local church. Pick up the books that you recommended on how to find a good, healthy church. Because that, if you don't know, not only can you contact us through the website, but you can pick up these books and do your own homework. Which, if you're still struggling after reading those books, please let us know. We will do what we can to find you a local church that is in your area, that is going to be a good gospel preaching church. So, Raphael, thank you for the conversation, and we will see you all next week.
See you next week.
God bless.
God bless.